Planted early, paid why most people retire broke and never see IT picture retirement party. Not the fancy kind with an open bar and a slideshow. The kind in a break room, fluorescent lights. A sheet cake from the grocery store that says, "Happy Retirement, Gary," in blue frosting. Someone brought a card, passed it around, everyone signed it. Most of them wrote, "Enjoy the next chapter," because nobody knew what else to say. Gary is 67. He worked at the same logistics company for 31 years. He showed up on time every time. He got the reviews that said meets expectations. He raised 2 kids, paid his mortgage, never missed a car payment. He did everything the way you're supposed to do it. And in 6 months, Gary is going to run out of money, not dramatically, not all at once. He's not going to wake up one morning with a zero balance and a dramatic realization. It's going to be slower than that. It's going to be the vacation they don't take. The grandkid's birthday present that's a little smaller than last year. The prescription he starts cutting in half because the copay went up and the social security check didn't. It's going to be quiet and incremental and deeply, deeply invisible. And the worst part, Gary never saw it coming because nobody showed him the math. Nobody sat him down at 35 and explained what was actually going to happen. The people who were supposed to help him, his employer, the financial system, the cultural scripts he inherited about what retirement looks like. They all failed him in ways that were entirely legal, technically voluntary, and completely devastating. My name is Mick, and today we are going to do something the retirement industry genuinely does not want us doing. We are going to follow the money, find the gaps, name the traps, and figure out exactly why most Americans arrive at retirement with almost nothing, and why almost none of them ever saw it coming. And I will warn you now, this is going to take a while, because the story of how a country full of hardworking people ends up broke at 67 is not a simple story. It is a story with 4 acts, a villain hiding in plain sight, and an ending that you can actually change, but only if you understand what you're up against. So let's start at the beginning. #ACT1. The number nobody knows here is a question I want you to answer honestly, right now, before we go any further. How much money do you need to retire? Not a vague answer. Not enough. A number. A real, specific dollar amount that you could write on a piece of paper and hand to someone and say, "When I have this, I'm done." If you have that number, I want you to hold on to it, because we're going to come back to it, and it is going to be uncomfortable. If you don't have that number, and research consistently shows that the majority of Americans don't, then what I'm about to tell you is the most important thing you will hear today. The average American has no retirement target. They have a vague, anxiety-shaped sense that they should probably save more. They have a 401k that they enrolled in because HR said to and haven't looked at since. They have a retirement plan that is really just a hope, a quiet, unexamined hope that something will work out. And hope is not a retirement strategy. Hope is what you have when you don't have a plan. Here are the actual numbers, and I need you to sit with these because they are genuinely shocking even if you've heard them before. The median retirement savings for Americans aged 55 to 64, that's the people who are 10 years or less from the traditional retirement age, is approximately $185,000. Not per person, per household. $185,000 now. Let's do the math that nobody at HR ever walked you through. If you retire at 65 with $185,000 and you follow the 4% rule, which is the most widely tested, most cited framework in all of retirement planning, and which says you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio per year without running out of money over a 30-year retirement. 4% of $185,000 is $7,400 a year. That is $616 a month from your savings. Social Security, for the average American who spent their career earning average wages, adds roughly $1,700 a month. Combined, you are looking at $2,316 a month in retirement income. The average monthly expenses for a retired American household are approximately $4,345. That dollars is a gap of over $2,000 a month, every month, for the rest of your life. That is the Gary situation. That is the sheet cake party ending. That is the number that explains why 40% of Americans over 65 rely on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. Why nearly half of all retirees have less than $10,000 in savings when they stop working. Why the fastest growing demographic of workers in the American economy is people over the age of 65, not because they love working, but because they cannot afford to stop. So how did we get here? How does a country this wealthy produce a retirement crisis this quiet and this enormous? 4 reasons, and each one is more invisible than the last. #ACT2, the 4 invisible traps ***. Trap 1, the pension that disappeared ***. If you were born before 1960, there is a reasonable chance your parents retired with a pension, a defined benefit plan. A check that arrived every month, same amount, for the rest of their lives, regardless of how the market performed, regardless of how long they lived, regardless of literally anything except the fact that they had worked for that company for a certain number of years. That world is gone. In 1980, roughly 60% of private sector workers with a retirement plan had a pension. By 2022, that number was under 4%. What replaced the pension was the 401k. And the 401k, I want to be very clear about this, was not designed to replace the pension. It was designed in 1978 as a way for high-earning executives to defer compensation and reduce their tax burden. That was it. That was the whole idea. A tax shelter for people who were already wealthy enough to max it out. Then, in the early 1980s, companies figured out that if they pointed their workforce at this executive tax tool and called it a retirement plan, they could transfer all of the risk of retirement planning from the employer, who had been absorbing it through pension obligations, onto the employee. And so over the course of about 15 years, quietly, without anyone holding a vote or issuing a press release, the entire burden of American retirement shifted from employers, who understood compound interest and had professional fund managers and decades of institutional knowledge, to individual workers who were handed a brochure and asked to make 40-year investment decisions in their lunch break. That transfer of risk is the original sin of the modern American retirement crisis. Everything else we're going to talk about happens inside the world that decision created. ***. Trap 2. The starting line nobody hits *** here is what should happen, according to the financial industry's own guidelines. You should start saving for retirement in your 20s. Specifically, by 25, you should be contributing 15% of your gross income to retirement accounts. This is the number that, when you run the projections, actually produces a retirement that works. Not 6%, not whatever gets you the employer match. 15% here is what actually happens. The median age at which Americans start saving for retirement is 31, not 25, 31. And that 6-year gap, those 6 years in your mid to late 20s, when your income is lower and your expenses feel enormous and retirement feels like a distant science fiction concept, the gap is catastrophic. Not because of the dollars you didn't save, because of the compounding those dollars never had the chance to do. Let me show you this math slowly, because this is the math that should make every 25-year-old feel a cold, clarifying shock. If you invest $5,000 a year starting at 25, and you earn a 7% average annual return, which is the conservative historical average for a diversified stock portfolio, by age 65, you will have approximately $1.07 million. If you start the exact same investment at 31, 6 years later, same amount, same return, you will have approximately $700,000. Same dollars discipline, same sacrifice, same monthly commitment. A $370,000 difference because of 6 years, but it gets worse, because it's not just that people start late, it's that starting late means you're trying to catch up during the exact years when life is most expensive. Your 30s, kids maybe, mortgage maybe, student loans possibly still, car payments, the full weight of adult life landing on you simultaneously, and so the catch-up contribution never really catches up. You intend to save 15%. You manage 6%. You tell yourself you'll increase it next year. Next year becomes next year becomes next year, and then you're 55 and the HR brochure is suddenly terrifying instead of boring. ***. Trap 3. The fee you never see ***. This one is quiet. This one is almost invisible. And this one has probably already cost you more money than you realize. When you contribute to a 401k, your money goes into funds. Usually mutual funds, and those funds charge fees. They're called expense ratios, and they're expressed as a percentage of your assets. The average actively managed mutual fund in a 401k has an expense ratio of about 1%. 1%. That sounds like nothing. 1% is a rounding error. 1% is the tip on a cheap lunch, Here is what 1% actually costs you over 40 years. Take $100,000 invested for 40 years at 7% annual return. With no fees, you end up with approximately $1.5 million. With a 1% annual fee, your effective return drops to 6%. You end up with approximately $1.02 million. The fee cost you nearly $500,000, a $100,000 starting investment. Over 40 years, 1% at a time. And here's the thing that should make you genuinely angry. The funds that charge 1% do not outperform the funds that charge 0.05%. The research on this is not ambiguous. Decades of data from Vanguard, from Morningstar, from every serious academic study on fund performance all say the same thing. The single most reliable predictor of a fund's future return is its cost. Low-cost funds beat high-cost funds, not occasionally, on average, consistently. Over time, the fee is not buying you better performance. The fee is buying the fund manager a yacht, and it is coming out of your retirement, 1 quiet percent at a time. So what's the fix? Index funds. Low-cost, passively managed index funds that track the whole market and charge expense ratios as low as 0.03%. The gap between 1% and 0.03% over 40 years is not a rounding error. Is, as we just showed, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. But here is the cruel irony. Most 401k plans, particularly at small and mid-sized companies, don't offer low-cost index funds. They offer the actively managed funds the plan administrator negotiated, which are often the funds with the highest fees, not the lowest, because the funds with the highest fees have the most room to share revenue with the administrator. The system is not neutral. The system has preferences. And its preference is not your retirement. Trap 4. The behavior gap ***. This one is the hardest to talk about because it's not the system's fault. It's ours. And by ours, I mean human beings, evolutionarily, psychologically, wired in ways that are beautifully suited for surviving on the savannah and catastrophically unsuited for 40-year investing. There is a famous annual study by a firm called DALBAR that tracks the actual returns earned by real investors versus the returns of the market itself. And every year, the results are the same, and every year they are devastating. Over the past 30 years, the S&P 500 has returned roughly 10.7% annually. Over the same period, the average equity fund investor has earned roughly 6.3% same market. Different results. A gap of over 4 percentage points. Every year. For 30 years. Why? Because real investors panic when the market drops. They sell in downturns. They buy back in after the market has already recovered. They chase the funds that performed well last year, which research consistently shows are reliably the funds that will underperform next year. They check their balances constantly, which makes them more anxious, which makes them more likely to make emotional decisions, which makes them poorer. The behavior gap, the difference between what the market returns and what investors actually earn, is arguably the single biggest driver of retirement failure in America. And it's the most invisible because it doesn't show up on a fee disclosure or a benefit statement. It shows up 30 years later when you open your account and wonder where the money went. Here's the number that should make this concrete. The difference between earning 10.7% and earning 6.3% on $500 a month invested over 40 years is approximately $2.7 million. Not a difference in how much you saved. A difference in how you behaved while saving it. That is the behavior gap, measured in dollars. And for most people, it is the largest single financial mistake they will ever make, and they will never know they made it. #ACT3. Meet the people it's happening to. Let me introduce you to 3 people. None of them are Gary with the sheet cake. All of them are on their way to becoming him. ***. Meet Sandra. ***. Sandra is 44. She's a dental hygienist in a mid-sized city, makes about $68,000 a year, has a 401k through her practice that she's been contributing 4% to since she was 35, because 4% is what gets her the employer match, and nobody ever told her the match was a floor, not a ceiling. She has about $87,000 saved. She owns a condo. She has a car payment. She has about $12,000 in credit card debt from a rough couple of years in her early 40s. She thinks about retirement roughly twice a year, once when HR sends the open enrollment email, and once when she sees a news story that makes her stomach drop. Sandra needs about $1.8 million to retire at 65 at her current lifestyle. She is on track to have approximately $340,000. She doesn't know this. Nobody has told her. Meet Marcus. Marcus is 52. He works in it for a mid-sized company, makes $95,000, has a 401k with about $210,000 in it. He considers himself financially responsible. He has a financial advisor he sees once a year who tells him he's doing fine. He has a mortgage with 14 years left on it, 2 kids in college, a car lease, and a habit of taking one decent vacation a year because, as he says, you can't take it with you. Marcus's advisor has him in a target date fund with an expense ratio of 0.7%. The advisor himself charges 1% of AUM annually. Marcus pays, between the fund fees and the advisor fee, about 1.7% per year in fees on his $210,000 portfolio. Last year that was $3,570. In 13 years at the same fee rate on a growing portfolio, Marcus will have paid his advisor and his fund managers somewhere in the neighborhood of $180,000. Marcus does not know this. He has never calculated it. The advisor has never volunteered it. Marcus thinks he's doing fine because the advisor says he's doing fine, and the advisor's business model depends on Marcus continuing to believe that. Marcus needs approximately $2.4 million to retire at 65 at his current lifestyle. He is on track for about $580,000. He doesn't know this either. Meet Patricia and Don. Patricia is 61, Don is 63. They're married, combined income around $110,000, $2 Social Security checks coming eventually, a house that's mostly paid off, and $340,000 in combined retirement savings. They feel okay, better than okay actually. They feel like they did it right. The house is almost paid off. The kids are out. Don is thinking about retiring at 65. Patricia at 63 here is what they haven't accounted for. Don's father lived to 91. Patricia's mother is 88 and still going. If Don and Patricia both live into their late 80s, they need their retirement savings to last 25 to 30 years. Their $340,000 at 4% produces $13,600 a year. Their combined Social Security will be about $42,000. Total income, $55,600. Their current expenses, reduced for retirement but expanded for healthcare, approximately $72,000. The dollars gap is $16,400 a year, every year, for potentially 25 years. The house equity helps maybe. If they sell and downsize, maybe they bridge it. Maybe, but what they didn't plan for, what almost nobody plans for, is healthcare. The average retired couple in America spends approximately $315,000 on healthcare costs over the course of their retirement. That's not a monthly expense line item. That's a $315,000 liability that shows up gradually, unpredictably, and ruthlessly in the form of premiums and copays and prescriptions, and the thing that Medicare doesn't cover and the other thing that Medicare doesn't cover. Patricia and Don are not going to be okay. They are going to be okay-ish for about 10 years, and then they are going to be in trouble. And they are 5 years from retirement, and they don't know it. ACT4, the math that changes everything. Okay. I've been the bearer of bad news for a while now, and I want to be clear about why. Not because I enjoy it, because you cannot fix a problem you don't fully understand. And most Americans don't fully understand this problem because nobody benefits from them fully understanding it. Not the fund managers, not the 401k administrators, not the financial advisors whose fees depend on assets under management, not the employers who shifted the risk and prefer you don't look too closely at what you got in the trade. The only person who benefits from you fully understanding this is you, so let's talk about what actually works. The number first. Before anything else, you need a number, your number. The specific dollar amount you need to retire at your current lifestyle. Here's the formula. Take your current annual expenses, not your income, your actual spending, and multiply by 25. That's your retirement target under the 4% rule. It's not perfect, it's a starting point. A real, specific, written-down starting point. If you spend $50,000 a year, your number is $1.25 million. If you spend $80,000, it's $2 million. If you spend $40,000, it's $1 million. Write it down, right now, not after the video. Write the number, asterisk asterisk, the rate next, asterisk asterisk. Now check what you're actually contributing, not what HR enrolled you at, not what the default was when you signed up. What you are actually contributing as a percentage of your gross income right now. If it's less than 15%, it needs to go up. And I know that sounds impossible if you're already stretched. But here's the thing, most people don't increase their contribution because they don't feel the money going in. You do actually, but less than you think. A 1% increase on a $70,000 salary is $700 a year, or about $58 a month pre-tax. After tax, you might actually feel about $40 less per paycheck, $40 a month to buy yourself potentially $100,000 more in retirement. That math is worth the 40 increased dollars by 1%, then increase again next raise, then again, and again. Use every raise as an excuse to widen the gap between what you earn and what you spend before you have the chance to lifestyle inflate your way into a smaller gap. Asterisk asterisk the fees next. Asterisk asterisk log into your 401k. Right now, look at the funds you're in. Find the expense ratio on every fund you own. If anything is above 0.2%, you have a fee problem. Look for index funds, S&P 500 index, total market index, target date index, and move your contributions there. If your plan doesn't offer low-cost index funds, that is important information. You can push HR on this. You can email the plan administrator. Companies have been sued successfully for offering only high-fee funds. You have standing to ask questions and demand options. Asterisk asterisk the behavior last. And hardest, asterisk asterisk set your contributions to auto-increase annually. Set your investments to rebalance automatically. Then stop looking. Seriously, the research is unambiguous on this. Investors who check their balances less frequently earn better returns than investors who check constantly, not because they're smarter. Because they make fewer decisions, and fewer decisions means fewer emotional mistakes. Your 401k is not a stock ticker. It is not a daily temperature check on your financial health. It is a 40-year machine that should be given fuel, your contributions, and then left alone to do its job. The investor who opened a 401k in 1984 set it to auto-invest in a total market index fund and never looked at it again until 2024 beat the vast majority of professional money managers. Not because they were brilliant, because they were boring. Be boring the part about Social Security nobody wants to hear. We need to talk about Social Security. Because for about 40% of retired Americans, it is the majority of their income, and almost none of them understand how it actually works. Here's what most people know. You pay in while you work, you take out when you retire. Simple. Here's what most people don't know. When you claim matters enormously, you can claim Social Security as early as 62. Your full retirement age, depending on when you were born, is between 66 and 67. You can delay claiming all the way to age 70 for every year you delay past your full retirement age. Your benefit increases by 8%. That is a guaranteed, inflation-adjusted 8% return on the decision to wait. There is no investment on the planet that offers a guaranteed 8% return. Not bonds, not annuities, not anything. If your full retirement benefit at 67 is $2,000 a month, claiming at 62 drops that to about $1,400. Waiting until 70 increases it to about $2,480 over dollars, a retirement that lasts to 85, not an unusual outcome. The difference between claiming at 62 and waiting until 70 is approximately $150,000 in lifetime benefits. And those benefits are inflation adjusted, meaning they keep pace with rising costs in a way that most savings don't. And yet the majority of Americans claim as early as possible, at 62. Not because it's optimal, because they're scared the money will run out before they do, because they don't trust the system, because they've heard it's going bankrupt, because $1,400 now feels more real than $2,480 in 8 years. The fear is understandable. The math on it, though, is almost always wrong. If you are in average health and have a family history of longevity, waiting to claim Social Security is one of the highest return financial decisions available to you. Full stop. And almost nobody tells you this. The healthcare WILDCARDI mentioned the $315,000 number earlier, and I want to come back to it because it deserves its own section. Healthcare in retirement is not a line item. It is a category of risk that most retirement plans treat as a fixed number, and it is not a fixed number. It is a variable, unpredictable, potentially catastrophic number. Here's the reality. Medicare covers a lot. It does not cover dental. It does not cover vision. It does not cover most hearing aids. It does not cover long-term care, nursing homes, assisted living, in-home care, which, by the way, costs an average of $100,000 a year for a private room in a nursing home in 2026. And the average American who reaches 65 has a more than 50% chance of needing some form of long-term care before they die. Let me say that number again. More than 50% chance. The coin flip is not whether your retirement includes a long-term care expense. The coin flip is how expensive and how long. A 6-month nursing home stay at $100,000 a year is $50,000. A 3-year stay is $300,000, on top of everything else. After Medicare, after savings, potentially requiring the sale of a home that was supposed to be passed to children. People who plan for this, who have long-term care insurance, or enough assets to self-insure, or a specific plan for this specific risk, are overwhelmingly in the top income quartile. Everyone else is hopping it doesn't happen to them. And about half of them are wrong. #ACT5. The ending you can write here's where I want to leave you. Because this video is long, and I know some of you have been here for a while, and I want to make sure you leave with something you can actually use. Gary at 67, with the sheet cake and the quiet crisis coming, Gary's story was sealed much earlier. Not at 67, not at 55. At 35 maybe, at 40. At the moment when somebody should have sat him down and shown him the math and nobody did. You are watching this video, which means that moment for you is right now. The retirement crisis in America is not random. It is not bad luck. It is the predictable, mathematically inevitable outcome of a system that shifted the burden of retirement planning to individuals who were never given the tools, the education, or the honest projections to handle it. And that system has been operating this way for 40 years, quietly, and it has produced exactly the results you would expect. 40% of Americans retiring with almost nothing. A generation of Garys eating sheet cake while the math they never saw plays out. But math works both ways. The same compounding that punishes the person who starts at 31 instead of 25 rewards the person who starts today instead of next year. The same fee structure that silently drained Marcus rewards the person who moves to index funds this afternoon. The same behavior gap that costs the average investor 4 points of return per year rewards the person who automates their investments and stops watching the ticker. The people who retire with enough do not do anything miraculous. They start earlier, save more, spend less on fees, and get out of their own way long enough for compounding to do the heavy lifting. That's it. There is no secret. There is no trick. There is just math running in the background for a long time, in your favor or against you depending on the decisions you make today. So here is what I want you to do before this video ends. Write down your number. The 25 times your expenses number. Actually write it. Check your contribution rate. Today, not tomorrow. Look at your fund fees. One afternoon, that's all it takes. Set your contributions to auto-escalate. Every raise, every year, automatically. And if you are over 55 and the numbers are scary, know this, the math is harder, but it is not impossible. Delaying Social Security, reducing expenses, working a few years longer, adding part-time income in early retirement. None of these are glamorous, but all of them materially change the outcome. The mistake people make at 55 is deciding it's too late to matter. It matters. Every year, every dollar, every decision still matters. Gary didn't see it coming, you just did. That is the entire difference. Asterisk, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing in this video